Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Lobo News. Today's episode is El Chisme That Matters, highlighting Latinx student voices. My name is Miriam. I'm studying communications and English, and I'm Sudanese American, and today we have here with me.
Hi, my name's Jose. I am studying sociology at MPC, and I am Mexican American.
And hi everybody, my name is Jesus. I'm also Mexican American, and my major that I'm studying is biological sciences.
Hi, my name is Gustavo Matias. I am undeclared, and I am also Mexican American.
All right, it's so great to have you guys here with me today. I'm so excited for this. So why MPC? Why did you guys choose to come to MPC?
I personally chose to come to MPC. I graduated from Monterey High School, and I just wanted to further just, expand my knowledge and come here and just, experience kind of that college life.
Okay, period.
Yeah, I was just sharing with Gustavo and Jose earlier. I actually came out to Monterey to just hang out for a year, and in that year what happened was, I met some people, and eventually the thoughts of, man, I should go back to school came up, and MPC was 5 minutes from where I lived, and I came and asked, how do I get in? And it's been a fun ride since.
For me, it felt like the thing to do. I graduated 2021, so I started MPC online, and it was free for the first 2 years, and some pressures from my dad, so that's why I chose it.
MPC is the place to go, guys.
True.
MPC.
Yeah, I grew to really like MPC, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'll shake my pom-poms for MPC anywhere.
True.
It's a great school.
Our mascot.
All right. Moving on. So do you guys ever feel pressured to go to college when your parents or your grandparents say, I left my whole life behind so I could give you the education I didn't have?
For me specifically, it was more so like my parents never said that, and that is a blessing because, they never put that pressure onto me. But at the same time, as I grew up and, I saw through media, I saw through everything, people's experiences, how they were like, I need to do this. I need to get this done because my parents are they came to the U.S., they're going to college for the first time. So people really just kind of made me go into that thinking process. My parents never really said that, which I'm lucky to, have experienced.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like you have that constant worry of I'm the only one going to college. Sorry. How can I help them when they're older? And how can I kind of just get past college, be successful, and take care of them? Because that's my biggest worry, taking care of them.
Giving back.
Yeah, because they did this for me, They can say they didn't, but I know they did.
Yeah, can you can you tell me the question one more time?
Of course. Do you ever feel pressured to go to college when your parents or your grandparents say, I left my whole life behind so I could give you the education I didn't have?
Yeah, I could relate a lot to Jose also. My parents never officially tell me, hey, you have to go do this, you have to go do that. There's this pressure. But growing up, either from society, the people around me, I don't know where it came from, but I did put that self-pressure on myself. And I thought I needed to do all these, go to college, get a bachelor's, go get a career, and because I needed to help my parents. And, sitting here with all of you guys, it's a pretty beautiful experience for me because life started to happen. And eventually 15 years lapsed from when I dropped out of school the first time around and when I came back to school. So my perspective changed. The way I kind of come about education's a little different. And somewhere in there, I got to really talk to my parents, and my mom, especially in Spanish, she would always say, mijo, está bien ser pobre, pero ser feliz. And it took many, many years for that to really hit home. you know, from my head to my heart. It took a long time. But then eventually, you know, coming back to school this time around, I have direction. You know, I'm a little older now, so there's a little bit more discipline. And now it's fun. Now I get to, like, meet, you know, people like Jose and Gustavo and you, Miriam, and I get to do fun things like this now. But that pressure that we put on ourselves, you know, when there's no direction and when we're young, it really, really does something to a human being that it messed me up for a long time. But I'm grateful today. It's not as bad.
Yeah, and then there's like that that's saying that, oh, you have to finish college in 4 years. That's no.
Mm-hmm.
Well, unlike Jose and Jesus, I did have a lot of pressure from my dad. And there is a reason why I'm undeclared, because I don't know what I want to do. And right now I'm just going to general ed, but it does come from a place of him feeling unstable at his jobs. And he always says that he wants me to have a career, not a job. And like, I see how tired he gets, how stressed he gets, overworked. And it does like make me come to see that I really do need to do this for myself. But like you said, I don't think I will do it in 4 years, but I will get it done eventually.
And that's okay.
And yeah, that's okay.
Yep.
Because I don't think I'm going to finish it in 4 years as well. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm on
that's
the...
It's hard.
yeah.
Societal pressures.
So there's this term for a word that I feel like everyone has felt once in their life, whether you're a woman in a male-dominated space or a minority in a mostly predominantly white space. It's called imposter syndrome. It's that feeling like you don't belong in a space, like you shouldn't be there, or maybe someone deserves it more than you, which, by the way, they don't. You are there for a reason, and you deserve everything coming your way. Have you ever felt that way? And if you did, how did you overcome it?
I think imposter syndrome is very real. And growing up low income and first generation Mexican American, you don't see a whole lot of, you know, just Latino individuals who are college educated, specifically here in like Seaside. I grew up in Seaside. So I never got to have those conversations that probably are important that a lot of kids have with a lot of college educated people. My parents, my dad, he has a 2nd grade education and my mom has a 6th grade education before they had immigrated here to the U.S. And so they never really understood the educational system and like going through the steps, growing up, going to elementary school, middle school, high school, you know, it was just kind of that like I didn't know what I was doing and I was just going with the flow because everyone else was doing it. Of course, eventually when I got to high school, that's kind of where it hit the most because I was like around all these people who, you know, have all this access to like help. Like someone had already done it in their family. Someone had already gone through the steps of going to college, going to, you know, completing their bachelor's. And so when I got there, I was just kind of like, what do I do? How do I do this? And thankfully, you know, my school had a lot of support systems, had a lot of like, they showed me which direction to go in. And I'm very thankful for that because I know in a lot of spaces and a lot of communities, a lot of people don't have access to that support. And just growing up and now being in college, I still feel it at times, you know, that imposter kind of like, oh, you know, like, am I supposed to be here? You know, I look around and there's people doing like twice as many things as I am. You know, they're doing 3 clubs, you know, they're getting into it. And I work and I go to school, you know, so I have a lot of time that is taken up by those things. But at the same time, you know, you have to remind yourself that you're here because you did it. You went through the steps. You applied. You registered. You did your financial aid. You picked out your classes. You didn't have any help. You know, thankfully, El Centro did really help me personally. And they were able to, you know, advocate and just like show me that support that I needed. And so because of them, but mostly because of me, you know, I put myself through that and I put myself through those steps. So I was just kind of like able to work through it. So even if you think you can't do anything, and this goes for any aspect of your life, determination is that one thing that will always push you through. And as long as you have that, you're good. You don't have to be right. You don't have to be smart. You don't have to be, you know, as long as you have that motivation and that drive, you'll be fine. And that's something my parents instilled into me since I was young. And that's something I carry with me in every part of my life. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Speaking of El Centro, the first year experience program, Carla Ramirez, she helped me a lot with coming up with some of these questions that I'm asking you guys here today. So, go Lobos!
I love Carla.
Yeah,
That's my girl. Love
She's
her.
a real one.
She's cool for sure. You know, she's cool for sure. And you know, thanks for that share, Jose, because you know, I strongly believe in imposter syndrome a lot also. You know, I show up to school nowadays and I come to basic needs and I work hard, show up to my classes on time and I study pretty hard and I get good grades. But every single time the semester ends and then I could see like real good grades and I'm always like, oh man, like I don't deserve those grades because I'm not that smart. Or man, maybe the teacher gave them to me because they have some sort of self-pity for me and everything besides my mind telling me that I deserve them. That, man, maybe I am smart, you know, and those are the things that, you know, I could relate to when you were talking about how, like, I grew up and there's not a lot of, you know, my parents aren't really educated also. So there's not a lot of, like, learning how to have either positive affirmations or learning how to have any sort of good dialogue in my mind between me and myself. You know, and so everywhere that I go, that imposter syndrome's always back there. And again, you know, Carla, MPC in general, you know, they're helping shed all of these old ideas that I walk in with. You know, all of these things that since growing up, not that my parents, you know, try to instill these things in me. It's just they did the best they could. And, you know, I could definitely, you know, I get to go to a lot of different little places, but seeing people that are not of my same color or my same background makes me feel a little bit a part of or different. But thanks to MPC, thanks to other little volunteer stuff that I get to do, I'm starting to see that, you know, there's a lot of people like us out there succeeding and paving the road for us. Because, you know, if I don't continually seek to see those things, I don't believe them. You know, I still believe of what I think of myself, that imposter. But man, like, you know, getting to hang out with you, even Miriam, you know, you've given me some good talks outside of this over at Basic Needs and just a lot of good things for me to change as a whole being, you know.
Thank you so much. Thank you, both of you guys, all three of you guys. Over here at MPC, we have a lot of different support services, service programs, the Welcome Center, El Centro, ELPS, TRIO, ASMPC, Basic Needs. They all out there.
Yeah,
and they're all helpful.
You know what? Shout out, and I've just talked to 2 people in the last 2 days. Shout out to ARC. I think that's something I need.
Yes.
I need to go and talk to them about, see some, because this anxiety that I carry and all of these, you know, just it goes back to also putting that same pressure on myself, and I think I don't, but then I get somewhat honest with myself, and I do, and you know, it's just I feel like I'm gonna go talk to ARC, but that's one of those resources that helps students with you know, mental issues and all that stuff.
Definitely.
Shout out to all those programs and shout out to MLC, Math Learning Center. Y'all
Math
haven't been
Learning
back.
Center, yeah, no,
I'm
like,
taking math right now. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
that class is killing me.
Eric, Doug, Jesse,
And
you know,
Task.
Jackson. Who else is over there? I'm there all the time.
Yeah, and then Task as well, the Tutoring Academic Success Center, I believe it counts. Yeah.
Yes.
Y'all, wait, we can't forget about Emoja. They be having village practices that really bring us together as a community with all that we learn there.
And the Reading and Writing Center is pretty cool too.
Forget them, can't forget them. All right, Gustavo.
Oh, well, like how Jesus said, honestly, I do struggle a lot with my confidence. And it does come out with school because sometimes I don't feel like I am smart enough or I don't have the attention span. And like you guys were talking about right now, all these programs, like I only know the Reading Writing Center. EOPS, and that's about it. Like, I feel like Jose, like, as he said, he works and he goes to school, so he's in and he's out, you know? I don't get to, like, see all these things. Like, you said ARC? That's therapy?
Access Resource Center. Yeah, so they're, I don't know if the therapists themselves are there. I still have to go ask myself, but yeah, they help students with any sort of help, I think, that's holding you back from succeeding, you know, in your classes.
Yeah, like Jose said, or Jesus, my parents didn't teach me to have, like, self-confidence and affirmations. So I do feel pretty alone and isolated. And I question if that's even me or, like, that imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when you mentioned ARC, and then you also mentioned therapy, I remembered that we have health service center or health services next in the, what building was it? What building? Student services. Yeah. Yeah, it's there.
Thank you.
Also, good job on shouting out EOPS and TRIO also.
Yeah, we love those.
A lot of resources
Shout
out here
out.
for us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, man, MPC, again, it'll go back to them. It's like the whole MPC as a community, man. They're out here to help us as students with anything we need. Anything that pops up, bring it up, and they will find a resource for you.
Yeah.
Anything.
Definitely.
It's incredible.
And a lot of the people who work here at MPC, they're like people who like went to MPC in the past and they came back to give back to the community. And I think that's like really amazing and really wonderful.
Yeah, and I'll tie it back to this. When we talked earlier, when you had asked me to do this, I was like, my first thought was like, no, I'm good. I'm good.
No, for real.
But then, you know, I got to go sit down and hear CHISME That Matters with Dean Flettes and I forget who it was, but the doctor is her friend, you know, but that planted a seed of like, you know, just go try it out.
Yeah.
And because in that, and when we went and sat there and listened to them, Dean Flettes was sharing about how she's an MPC student, or, you know, she comes from MPC and the love she has for this place. And she just wants to like pour it all back into us.
Beautiful.
Once a Lobo, always a Lobo.
You and that sound effect, I love it.
All right, moving on. So on a daily basis, what kind of discrimination have you experienced? For instance, microaggressions, day-to-day based people mispronouncing your name or making assumptions based on your culture. How did you handle it? How did it make you feel? And if you haven't experienced it, how do you think it would make you feel?
Personally, me, I've never really experienced a lot of microaggressions like at face, you know, like face value, kind of like no one's telling me I can't do it. If anything, it's me, you know, it's kind of like that inner like kind of hater that you have. That's like, what are you doing? Even coming to this, like we were talking about before, I was like, you're crazy, you know, like, what are you doing, Jose? But of course, you can't let that one win, because if you let it win, then you're just going to be at home rotting away. But at the same time, nothing wrong with that. But I definitely know the rhetoric, or like the kind of like conversations people have of Mexican Americans when it comes to coming to school. A lot of, especially recently, hate coming towards the Latino community from outside sources. There's definitely that like kind of tie of being a blue collar worker and also just, you know, getting out of high school and just working. That's kind of like the expectation that I feel like a lot of people also have, alongside with that college expectation from their parents being first generation Mexican American. It's just like, there's definitely those conversations of like, oh, like, you know, why are you doing this? You know, like, you should be doing this instead. Like, this isn't you. Like, your people do this, you know? And it's kind of that conversation people have. And whether it's a joke or not, that's fine, you know, joke around. But at the same time, you can be joking around about something, but you're saying it, you know? You need to know what you're saying and the weight that it holds, because, you know, there's those negative stereotypes of like, oh yeah, Mexicans are like, I don't like to say it, but like, you know, they're like, oh, they're all construction workers, they're all this, like they're all that, you know? And it's like, to some degree, people will start to believe that and start to run with it. And it's just so, like, such a negative, like, kind of aspect people hold in their minds. And, you know, like I said, people can joke around and do all they want, but they're still saying it at the end of the day. And it still holds that same weight, even if you're joking around. So I think that shedding light on those topics is important because it matters.
Snap, snap, snap to everything y'all are saying. Snap, snap,
Thanks.
snap.
Yeah, thanks, Jose. You know, as far as microaggressions go, I don't. I'm very grateful from a racial standpoint. I've never experienced that. You know, the couple microaggressions that I've gone through, I guess, they're not even anywhere close to it. But you know, I grew up in the working in the restaurant business, and then you know we were talking earlier how picky people can be and how like the smallest little things they get so frustrated and angry and lash out at you. And I'm very grateful for those experiences though, because through painful experiences I've learned to kind of let them roll off my back. And when I tried, you know, I'd be a server and helping people out, but when they would be angry or lashing out, through a lot of trial and error, I learned that it's like, hey, it's not my fault. It's not on me. It's like whatever this person's going through, they're allowed to feel how they feel, but I don't have to hold on to whatever they're throwing at me and ruin my whole day, because it took a long time for me to let go and not allow somebody's kind of cloudy day take over my sunny day, you know?
Yeah.
But touching up on everything that you said, Jose, I actually, you know, I volunteer over at CHOMP here at our community hospital here in the Monterey area. And I got to do a program called Minorities in Medicine where Dr. Magana, shout out to him, out at CHOMP, he actually helps first-generation college students to, in this program is a one-year program, and we get to shadow doctors, trying to inspire the next generation of students that are first generation from all walks of life. But yeah, Dr. Magana is born and raised in Salinas, and so, you know, he went to school, and he's an incredible physician, very caring and compassionate, and he's out here just trying to give back because, you know, he has that big belief. It's like, man, si se puede, we can do it. And
para la raza.
Yeah, and but again, it goes back to what I said earlier too. It's like I have to see it to believe it, and then all these people. And it always, I bring it all the way back to MPC because they're showing me, right? They're showing us the light.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jesus. Miriam, I'm going to ask you, is it about school or anywhere, that microaggression?
Yeah. It could also be, you know, with your work life or your personal relationships, anything.
I feel like I actually do. 2 weeks ago, I was like cashing out a lady, and she was on the older side, and she got a grilled cheese. I was just making conversation about how I don't like cheese, how I don't like sourdough bread, and she says, "So what do you eat? Tortillas?" And I mean, I have experienced that, especially like working at the Park Lane, which is a retirement home. You do get those older people that, I don't know, it comes maybe not hate, but ignorance. For example, being like, "Oh, were you always this good at English?" Like comments like that. And even in Mexicans, I do get some microaggressions being Oaxacan and like how they talk about it. And it does really like hit a nerve on me, you know, those comments being indigenous, Indio, you know, uneducated, that darker, shorter, you know, the specific facial features maybe.
Definitely.
Sometimes in their body language, people probably give people looks and they're like, yeah, y'all get it.
I feel like there's this one certain word that it's particular to me and Gustavo's culture since we're related, but and I'll say it, but it's not a good word. It's a bad word. So it's the word chuno, and it's like thrown relentlessly at specifically Oaxacans, but specifically the ones that are from Santa Ynez. And it's like, you know, that kind of word of like, oh, you're more indigenous than us, so we're going to throw it in your face and be like, you don't know how to do this because you're just kind of like an Indio, you know, like this isn't your space. It's you need to kind of like go away, like stay away from the general population. You're chuno. It's kind of bad.
Yeah, and I'm very careful with using those words, even amongst like Mexicans, because I don't want anyone else to hear it and think it's okay to say.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I don't like saying beaner as a joke or any one of those like Mexican jokes, to be honest, personally.
Thank you, guys. To our last question. So, if you could tell something to your younger self, what would it be?
This one is pretty heavy, I think. It's kind of like, well, I have a quote, and this is my quote. Even though you might be different, it doesn't mean that you're weak. And I feel like very true, you know, just because I'm different from the, like, you know, general public doesn't mean that I'm weak. And living through my life, I grew up, you know, gay, Latino. So there's definitely those aspects in like Mexican culture and even just like all kind of Hispanic culture of like machismo, which is like, you know, this kind of outlook of this negative perception of people who don't fit the regular binary of like being a man. And that definitely gets thrown not to me in my face as much as it used to, but you know, there's those little kind of like, I guess, microaggressions of like, oh, you know, like men don't cry. I remember that being repeated all throughout my like growing up. You know, I was a very emotional child, and it's just like thrown in your face relentlessly. And you know, it doesn't mean, just because you're different doesn't mean you're weak. And you know, sitting here, it's like I look back at those kind of moments and I'm like, why, you know, like kind of like, why did you instill that into a child? I was a kid, you know, and it sucks. But at the same time, I am living proof of that is not true, you know, just because I grew up that way and all those negative comments were thrown my way does not mean that's who I am. If anything, I've overcome it. And so I'm just like, you know, I look back and I'm like, what are you saying? You know, like you look dumb, you know, but yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Jesus.
Yeah, thanks, Jose.
Of course.
Yeah, what would I tell my
Younger self.
younger self?
See a younger Jesus being like if you can see him and be like,
Yeah, man. I such a deep question. You know, I just got off working here at Basic Needs, and I get to work with this I'm in my mid-30s now, and I get to work with this young lady who's a freshman. She's 17. And even to this day, I get to learn like super valuable lessons. She's like, Jesus, sometimes we don't always have to talk, just breathe. And I just get going and my mind starts running. And I think I would tell first and foremost, you know, my younger self, it's like, hey, just breathe, man. Relax. It's going to be okay. And it'll revolve to every single topic we touched today. You know, the whole imposter syndrome, the whole feeling less than. It's like, just relax. Just be. And I can relate to, you know, men don't cry and all that stuff, but just be, I guess. That's it.
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you so much.
I think that was beautifully put, Jesus. I would probably just tell myself to learn to love yourself. That's about it.
Very true.
Hey, Miriam, may I make a question?
Yeah. Of course.
Okay. To you guys, what's the difference between appropriation and appreciation on the culture? Like, how would you make the difference between that?
That's actually a question that I would love to hear an answer to. I don't know.
I don't think I have a take on it. More so just like I can share my opinion. I think appropriation and appreciation have very distinct lines. When you appropriate something, it's mostly because you intend to, you know, kind of, I'd say make a joke about it, but at the same time, like, it's just it's a really like hard line to define, because when you appreciate someone's culture, it's like you look at something and you're like, oh wow, this is so beautiful. Like Mexican culture, a lot of people love, you know, kind of that I forgot what's the word, but like that kind of vaquero look, you know, that like cowboyish kind of look. And a lot of people do appreciate it, and you know, they do like, you know, partake in it, and that's fine, you know. But there's this fine line of like, when we look at certain things, like let's say we're going through Spirit Halloween, we're walking around and we see a taco owner like costume, you know, like this kind of like really stereotypical, just kind of like in your face, like this is what a Mexican is, kind of, you know, like costume. And we see that is kind of like that's when you kind of cross into appropriation. You know, kind of like you're wearing something because you think it's funny and you think it's a joke, when it's not, when it's something that has been absolutely kind of pushed as like, this is what a Mexican person is. And it's like you wear that and you're making fun of a culture. You're making fun of someone. I think it has to do with making fun of someone rather than like, you know, appreciation is just appreciation. And appropriation is, you know, making fun of someone while you're like kind of, that's what I think. But of course I could be wrong.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
No, I was just curious.
It all goes back to like your intentions, really.
I think so, yeah.
Thank you so much. That's all for today. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. Anything you guys want to say, closing off?
Thank you for your time. We appreciate you picking us, choosing us. You know, it was a really good experience. And again, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Miriam. I actually feel honored, honestly.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate, you know, of course, you, Miriam, asking us. And so nice to meet both of you, too.
Thank you. You
Yeah.
too.
Yeah,
Thank
Jose, you and Jesus beautifully put, like everything you guys.
All of
were
us
saying.
beautifully put.
Yeah, all of us. It was cool stuff, man. I got so much from both of you.
Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye. We're back again. Let's introduce ourselves.
Ya regresamos. Vamos a introducirnos.
First of all, thank you for having me here. My name is Victor Torres. I am majoring in history and doing an understudy in political science, and I am Mexican American.
Hi, also thank you for having me here. I'm Yesenia. I'm a dance major and I'm Mexican.
Hola, mi nombre es Liz. Gracias por tenerme aquí. Soy mexicana y actualmente mi major es Child Development.
It's so great to have you guys here with me today. So, let's get started. Why MPC?
Qué bueno por tenerlos a todos aquí. Ahora vamos a comenzar y queremos preguntarles por qué escogieron MPC.
So for me, it was a pretty simple choice. I really liked the friendly environment. Compared to Hartnell, at least, the staff was really friendly when I first came here. The Jumpstart program was really nice, and I just love Monterrey. ¿Por qué MPC? Me gusta el ambiente aquí, no solamente por los árboles y que cerca está la playa, pero también los instructores y también mucha otra gente que trabaja aquí son muy amigables, y eso me gustó más que Hartnell a mí.
Oh, yeah. I went to MPC because Hartnell doesn't have, I'm actually closer to Hartnell, but Hartnell doesn't have a dance program and MPC does have a dance major program. And since I'm a dance major, it only made sense that I came here for education.
That's great. Sorry.
Yo escogí MPC más por la experiencia que tuve los primeros 7 días que asistí al programa de Jumpstart. Me gustó mucho el ambiente de la escuela, los árboles y que estaba cerca del mar. También porque escuché que tenía muchas oportunidades y que te ayudaban en gran parte, cosa que otros colegios no había escuchado antes, y por eso escogí MPC.
It's nice to meet you guys, and it's nice to have you guys here. So, do you guys ever feel pressured to go to college when your parents or grandparents say, I left my whole life behind so I could give you the education I didn't have?
So to that question, it's a really great question. Yes, all the time. as much as they don't mention it, it's really subliminal messaging whenever I hear that my grandparents immigrated to this country for a better future, and also the examples of not slacking off. So yes, I do feel the pressure often to not only succeed for myself and go forward in life, but also to make sure my parents are proud. That's the constant pressure, at least how I feel whenever it's mentioned that they came over here for a better life, the struggles they face so that I don't have to. It really, and especially also being the oldest, really does place a lot of pressure on me to not only succeed, but also set a good example for my siblings and maybe also even in the family. So that's just my perspective.
I would say there is definitely some, like, a greater amount of pressure going to college. Growing up, like I said, both my parents didn't go to college. They didn't. Well, some did go to. My parents, they both went to college for some amount of time, but then had to drop out for, like, money reasons because college is expensive. So I was always raised, like, college is not an option. Like, college is, like, you have to go. Like, I've never seen college as an option. It's always been, like, something that I was going to. And it did put, like, a drive in me to do good in school so I can make it this far. And then, like, also to bounce off, I am also the oldest of my family, so I do think there is, like, an extra amount of pressure there because I feel like when you make choices, it's not just about you, but it's about you, the role model you are, and how it's going to affect how, like, your younger siblings or cousins see you as well.
Like how you're presenting yourself too.
Yeah.
¿Has sentido presión a atender el colegio, siendo que tal vez tus padres o hasta tú han inmigrado aquí a los Estados Unidos?
Creo que siempre va a haber un poco de presión, más por la manera en la que ellos te inculcan. También porque siempre te recuerdan que ellos emigraron a este país para poder tener un mejor futuro, el cual no tienen oportunidad porque ya están grandes. Entonces siempre me inculcan a mí que le eche ganas a los estudios, que venga al colegio, que pueda ser alguien en la vida para tener un mejor futuro y no terminar en el field. Y también creo que es porque siempre te instruyen a que tus hermanos menores siguen tus ejemplos. Entonces, les tienes que dar un buen ejemplo y sí.
Moving on to the next one. There's this term for a word that I feel like everyone has felt once in their life, whether you're a woman in a male-dominated space or a minority in a mostly predominantly white space. It's called imposter syndrome. It's that feeling like you don't belong in a space, like you shouldn't be there, or maybe someone deserves it more than you, which, by the way, they don't. You are there for a reason, and you deserve everything coming your way. Have you ever felt that way? And if you did, how did you overcome it?
So, hay una palabra, síndrome de impostor, que siempre los estudiantes sienten. ¿Has sentido antes ese sentido? ¿Y cómo te sientes?
So for me, this is a term I've recently heard just starting here at MPC, but imposter syndrome is something I have definitely felt many times. The best example I could think of is I work as an activist in environmental justice, so I would constantly have to head up to Sacramento. And just being in a space predominantly dominated by white men in suits, people who are much older than me, really does make me feel as that, like, I don't belong there. I shouldn't even be there, despite the fact that here in the United States, we all have a right to be anywhere, express ourselves as we believe to. But more importantly, also even at school, especially in Greenfield, where I'm from, where it's just such a Latino-dominated, heavy Latino population, even there, I felt as if I don't belong there at times because, maybe you don't have the right set of skills, your characteristics aren't this, just a bunch of factors that really make you feel as if I don't belong there.
For me, I do think imposter syndrome has had a big effect on me. In my life, especially growing up, my dad's always been, you are Mexican, you are proud that you're Mexican, this is your culture, you go out, every day you walk out of this house, you represent your culture and you should be proud of it. Represent your grandparents, your ancestors. My dad's always kind of like installed that in me, so I've always been like a proud Mexican. But I've always had a disconnect being able to really represent my culture because people think Mexican, they think brown skin. I do not have brown skin. I look white. I don't speak Spanish anymore. I just don't look the part. So I've gotten a lot of pushback from actually other Hispanics themselves, not just white people telling me that I'm not Mexican. It's always like, oh, no, you're not Mexican. Well, but I am. Well, then speak Spanish. I can't speak Spanish anymore. It's like, so you're not Mexican. So I do think it's almost like I've gotten a lot of pushback, and it's almost making me ashamed. Like, I feel scared to represent my culture. And it's like, do I really, like, it's like the imposter syndrome, do I belong? Like, I don't. It's always been really hard on me to, like, fully be proud and openly express my culture, because I'm always scared someone's going to sit here and tell me, no, you're not Mexican, you can't be doing this, you can't be doing that, because, you know.
Definitivamente es algo que sí he presenciado, más porque al emigrar a este país a una edad ya como en la adolescencia, es muy complicado empezar la escuela porque la mayoría de los alumnos hablan inglés, entonces se siente muy incómodo el estar en una clase donde no entiendes el lenguaje, no entiendes la cultura, es nuevo todo para ti. Y más cuando estás en una clase donde el maestro no te puede traducir, entonces es como que te miran, te sientes fuera de lugar.
How did you guys overcome this feeling?
So as to how to overcome the feeling of imposter syndrome, just as Yesenia said, it's about embracing your culture, really making yourself feel as like, I belong here, understanding and being confident in yourself and what your identity is, and not letting yourself be affected by what others think, because I definitely think that's been the worst part about the experience with imposter syndrome, is you're worried about what others think about you, and if you worry about them thinking that if you fit in the space. So I feel like the best way I've helped myself to overcome it is just really, as Yesenia said, embracing my identity, understanding that there's nothing wrong with being ashamed of my Mexican roots, and especially in the Latino community where we see it from other Latinos as well, especially here in the United States, because you might be güerita or you might be prieto. It's something we hear so thrown around, and it's so normalized in Latino culture that I really feel that's probably the biggest effect of imposter syndrome, especially in between us Latinos. But as far as overcoming it, it's all about embracing who I am and being confident in my identity.
Yeah, honestly, I definitely agree with that. I do think it is a lot of embracing. I think it was a lot of, like, I feel like getting the pushback, oh, you're not Mexican because I have white skin. I think it was, for a while, there was a good point in my life where I was genuinely ashamed. I genuinely was insecure because I have white skin. My skin is pale. I am pale. And I felt so, like, disconnected with my culture, but yet then I felt bad because I felt, like I said, my father always told me, like, oh, yeah, you represent your culture. I felt bad that I wasn't representing my culture. So not only, like, was I, like, insecure and I wasn't in touch with my culture, but then I felt like I was disappointing my dad because I wasn't being in touch with my culture. So, you know what I mean? So I think for a while there was a big, like, mental battle for me. But I do think there was a point, especially once I started dancing folklorico, that really embraced my culture. It really got me, like, connected with my culture again, and I did feel, like, one with my culture. So I do think that was a good outlet for me. And then from there, it was kind of just, like, embracing, like, being, you know, like you said, like, embracing and being proud that you're Mexican, being proud, like, yes, I look like this and I'm Mexican, like, so what? It's kind of like that.
Okay. ¿Cómo superas el sentimiento de síndrome del impostor?
Creo que es más siempre teniendo en cuenta quién eres y no porque seas mexicano y vengas a emigrar a un país te hace menos persona, más porque tienes que tener en cuenta el esfuerzo que tus padres hicieron para poder darte un mejor futuro, y el hecho de que te afecten las cosas, los comentarios o lo que la demás gente haga, realmente creo que no tiene un propósito. Entonces creo que es la mejor manera de evitarlo es ignorar ese tipo de cosas.
Thank you guys. Embracing yourself, staying true to yourself. So moving on to the next question. On a daily basis, what kind of discrimination have you experienced? For instance, microaggressions, day-to-day based people mispronouncing your name or making assumptions based on your culture. How did you handle it? How did it make you feel? And if you haven't experienced it, how do you think you would feel?
Diariamente, ¿qué tipo de discriminación has experimentado? Por ejemplo, microagresiones en el día a día, personas que pronuncian mal tu nombre o hacen suposiciones basadas en tu cultura. ¿Cómo lo manejaste? ¿Cómo te hizo sentir? Si no lo has experimentado, ¿cómo crees que te sentirías? ¿Tienes algún consejo para los que oyen?
So this is one that I always keep in mind, especially when attending school, is in high school especially. These microaggressions were not just directed towards me, but especially a lot of our students. And it really fell out of place because, again, this is a place that's predominantly Latino, with few white teachers here and there, and to still hear it from them, the certain stereotypes about Latino culture and, in particular, Latina women, that really didn't sit right with me. Well, further than that, also, my own personal experience just the other day, on a personal level, I had applied for food stamps, and I had a interview with the social worker, and they were just, first of all, really inconsiderate of who I was, but more importantly, they also dismissed the fact that I, as a person, was struggling, because they're like, oh, well, you should have access to all these benefits. You should have access to a ton more resources at your school or wherever you're at. And to me, that really felt like a personal attack on me because, okay, I might be young, but most importantly, because I'm Latino and you see me doing all this other stuff, going to school, you immediately assume that I have access to all this welfare because of the stereotype and all the news that we hear, like, oh, the immigrants, they're taking all this stuff from us, whatever, not all this nonsense. That's what it really felt like to me. But on a day-to-day level, it's thankfully not all the time that I hear them, but certain little things like that, passive aggressiveness, certain attitudes towards myself, or how you and I, Miriam, were discussing earlier about how when you're introducing yourself to certain people and they'll question you about, like, oh, really, where are you from? And you'll talk to them like anyone else. So like, oh, I'm from this city, but they're like, no, where are you really from? Immediately having to ask about your roots, doubting your ability as a person because, oh, you look different, quote unquote.
Thank you.
Microaggressions, I would say, actually, I do want to mention microaggressions. My first time I experienced a microaggression that I didn't really realize was a microaggression was actually when I was in preschool. And I didn't realize it was a microaggression. At that time, I didn't even know what microaggressions were. But I used to speak Spanish. Spanish was my primary language when I was like, because my dad, they're all from Jalisco and stuff, and I spoke all Spanish to that side of the family, and then my mother never spoke Spanish, so I was bilingual, fully bilingual, but I was more comfortable with Spanish. So I went to preschool. I was the only kid who spoke Spanish. The kids made fun of me because of that. I told my dad, can you stop speaking to me in Spanish? This is embarrassing. And I never told him the reason. To this day, he doesn't know the reason why I told him to stop speaking to me in Spanish. I was genuinely embarrassed. The kids were actually making fun of me. And so he did. He stopped speaking Spanish. And I completely forgot it. So I do think I think it shows that microaggressions, even though they're small, they play a big impact. You know what I mean? Because now I cannot speak Spanish at all. And I was completely stripped from my traditional language. You know what I mean? So I do think people take microaggressions and they kind of like, they don't think they're that deep, but I do think we need to start, like, the things we say, I think we need to start thinking more deeply about microaggressions because they can definitely affect you, like, later on in life, you know what I mean? And going forward, like, in, like, high school, my name's Yesenia, Yezenia. So obviously a lot of people say Yesenia. It's always been fine. I was just simple correction. I never minded it much. One thing that did get me was one time I had a substitute teacher, and he calls Yesenia. I was like, I'm here, Yesenia. It's pronounced Yesenia. He goes, well, then why is it spelled with a Z? Like, your mom can't spell? Like, why would she name you that? And I looked at him and I was like, well, traditionally in the Spanish alphabet, Z is pronounced with an S. So my name's Yesenia. And he just completely was like, no, and he gave me a whole lecture about how my mom doesn't know how to spell and how my name's messed up. And that, I will say, that definitely did hit me because I'm very proud of my name personally. I was named after my aunt who only lived a week old because she had heart issues. And I think it's a pretty name personally. I have a necklace of my name. Like, that's how proud I am of my name. So I do think that was kind of like, you know, that did hit me.
Yeah, and sorry to interrupt, but definitely I feel you on that level about being ashamed of your own language even. Same experience as you, but me in kindergarten, I was straight up told by a teacher that, oh, you're in America, you have to speak English. You're not going to make it far in school. You have to speak English. I would be put in the corner. I would be hunted down punishment. She would call my mom all because I spoke Spanish. And to that, it really made me feel like, well, I don't feel comfortable at all. And that's same to you, how you felt. I lost my language a lot. Thankfully, I can still speak it. I can still communicate with my grandparents. But stuff like that, that's certainly something I never thought of as a microaggression and that I had never thought of until now.
Yeah, sometimes we don't even realize that it's microaggression.
Creo que la microagresión más grande que yo he experimentado en toda mi vida hasta ahorita ha sido cuando me preguntan de dónde soy, les digo que de México, me preguntan exactamente de dónde y al decir que soy de Oaxaca, les hace pensar que hablo un cierto dialecto y que porque hablo bien el español. Y luego me preguntan qué tipo de dialecto hablo, pero no lo preguntan de una manera de que para saber más bien de qué se trata, de qué es la cultura, cómo se habla. Es más como para hacerte sentir mal por hablar un dialecto y luego estar aquí y no hablar inglés. Entonces es la microagresión más grande que he tenido. Pero no me avergüenza decir que hablo un dialecto. Al contrario, me siento orgullosa el poder comunicarme con dos diferentes tipos de personas que hablan. Yo hablo triqui, que hablan triqui y español. Y al poder aprender inglés sería básicamente 3 lenguajes. Entonces, no me avergüenza para nada, pero hay personas que te preguntan si hablas dialectos solamente para hacerte sentir mal.
Wow, 3 languages? That's impressive.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to pop culture. What does culture mean to you, and how do you rep your culture?
So this is definitely a tough question, but I've always just felt that culture is how you identify yourself, but to many it's a certain characteristic, a certain group even, that you might identify yourself with, that you think you align closely with. But to me, it's always been cultura. Culture is who you see yourself as. Do you see yourself as a Mexican? Do you see yourself as American? Or as I hear a lot of the time, neither this or that. To me, culture is really about finding who you are, embracing your identity, and being able to express yourself in a way that you see fit, that you see aligns with your culture.
For me, culture would be a lot of like the traditions you carry with you. I will say like, yeah, like kind of what you're saying, like the traditions you carry with you, your surroundings, how your family like raised you with their morals, depending. I think a culture can kind of tie into morals as well, because I do think culture is a big part of like how your morals are shaped, and just who you are as a person. Like, yeah, I would say honestly, it really for me, it really all just traces back to tradition.
Ok, ahora vamos a hablar de la cultura. ¿Qué significa la cultura para ti? ¿Cómo representas tu cultura?
La cultura creo que es una mezcla de las prácticas, de las tradiciones que has tenido a lo largo de tu infancia, los valores que te inculcan.
All right. So, if you guys could tell something to your younger self, if you could see your younger self, what would it be? What would you tell them?
Si pudieras decirle algo a tu yo más joven, ¿qué sería?
So if I could tell my younger self something, I wouldn't trauma dump on them, but I would definitely tell them the most important thing is to not worry what others think about what you're doing, to feel proud in what you're doing, be proud of yourself, and don't let yourself be held back in what you do, what you want to pursue in life, because what others might think. Others might think you're weird. Others might think all kinds of other things, but you shouldn't let that affect you. If you feel that that's their biggest problem, if you really are worried about what people think about you, ignore it, because as I mentioned earlier in the conversation with you, Mira, life is too precious. Life goes by too fast to be worried about what others think about you, and it's important to live life as you see fit, as you like, and to just ignore what others might think of you.
Yeah, to live in the present.
I do 100% agree with that. Actually, I was going to say something along those lines. That is so real, because for me, it's always like, I'm only here once. I'm only here for a short period of time. Just have fun. Like, why are you going to waste it doing anything else other than having fun? Like, whether the situation's bad or not, you just have to have fun with it. You just have to go with it, because why? You know what I mean? Like, it only happens once. Like, just go with it. At the end of the day, the world's still spinning and the sun's coming up tomorrow, so it's going to be okay. But if I could tell my younger self anything, I would tell her, don't stop speaking Spanish. You're gonna regret it later. Don't ignore the kids. Do not. I would really heavily encourage that I keep speaking Spanish, and I would tell her that I would also tell her just to keep going overall, because when I first started dancing folklorico, I actually lost friends because people told me I was cultural appropriating because I have white skin. I almost stopped dancing, and dance is my major now. So I would tell her, like, you're going to hear things. People are going to tell you things, and you just have to keep going. Just, stay strong. That's about it.
Thank you so much, guys.
Si pudiera decirle algo a mi yo del pasado, sería no sentirme mal por las cosas difíciles que estoy pasando en este momento, ya que a lo largo de la vida tendremos muchas cosas difíciles por el cual pasar, pero lo importante es seguir, que no te importe lo que la gente diga de ti, lo que otros opinen, que hablen cosas de ti, que se rían de ti. Al final el esfuerzo que tú hagas va a ser lo que vas a recibir en el futuro. Entonces yo le diría que no se avergüence de su cultura, que al contrario se sienta orgullosa de poder hablar 3 diferentes idiomas, de la vestimenta, que es también una vestimenta que los representa a ellos, y algunas personas lo toman como haciéndole bullying a las personas por usar un traje típico que ellos usan con orgullo. Entonces, definitivamente no avergonzarte de dónde eres, de tus padres, y seguir adelante.
Gracias muchos. By the way, guys, the wolf is because we are Lobos. Go Lobos. So last question. Speaking of the term Latinx, do you identify with that term?
Última pregunta. Hablando del término Latinx, ¿te identificas con el término?
So as far as the term Latinx, I definitely think it's a great idea. I think it's a good step. It's a step in the
Right.
I always forget that term, but I think it's a good step towards progress, especially in Latino culture, where Latin American culture, where it's always so masculine dominated. Everything has to be really masculine oriented, and everything that's perceived feminine is always really suppressed in a way. It's almost meant to be hidden behind a masculine identity. So I definitely think it's amazing that as Latin American communities expand, not only here in the United States but across the world, it's important to recognize that gender is a social construct, and it is more than just a binary. There's so many other expressions that many of us aren't aware of, and it's important to recognize and embrace and validate those people who happen to be Latin American but don't conform to, say, male or female. And as someone who is non-binary, I think it's a great step, and it's amazing that we're able to have this term despite, sadly, so much pushback from other Latin Americans who think, oh, it's just appropriation, it's just quote-unquote woke or whatever else nonsense they try and throw it around. So I think it's definitely great and a right step in making progress.
Personally, I've never understood the meaning of Latinx. I'm going to be real. I've never really understood the meaning of Latinx. I feel like it's just another way of saying Hispanic, Mexican, Latino, Latina. I do get it for people, like I said, non-binary people who want to identify with it. So I fully support whoever wants to identify with it. You do that. I'm going to support you. Yes. Love that for you. Personally, I'm Hispanic, I'm Latina, I'm Mexican. Latinx, I've never used that term, and I would never use that term to refer to myself. You know what I mean? But yeah.
Sinceramente yo tampoco sé mucho del tema, no había escuchado ese término antes. Tengo entendido que es algo relacionado con tu orientación sexual, pero no me definiría así, pero tampoco tengo problema con que otras personas se definan así. a todos merecemos respeto, entonces yo respeto si las personas se consideran con ese término, estoy totalmente bien.
Thank you everyone for
Thank
being
you.
here with us today. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Victor. Thank you, Yesenia. Thank you so much.
Muchas gracias a todos.